Namaste, hello, and a very warm welcome to UPSC for everyone. My name is Abhinav, and in this video, we are going to discuss certain selected topics from the Indian Express and the Hindu. Now, in the first article, we'll be discussing about the concept of elephant corridors, and we'll also get to know why elephants are important for us. In the second articles, we'll have a brief look at the issue of electronic wastes in India. In the third, we'll look at the WISE app, which has been developed by two IIT Bombay friends who are basically from Jammu and Kashmir, that is helping students to attend online classes with the poor internet connectivity. In the next article, we'll look at how Russia is trying to conduct phase 3 trials in India. In the next article, we'll look at the DGCA proposed formula for airlines to refund the passengers whose flights were cancelled due to COVID-19. Then we'll see Germany issuing threat to Russia with sanctions. This issue is about the poisoning of the opponent of Mr. Putin. Then we'll also look at a report which says that if India closes its old power plants, it will save 53,000 crores over the next 5 years. So we'll look at the whole issue as to who were the Moplas and what were the riots all about. Then we'll also look at the issue of Assam Rifles, a tussle between Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Home Affairs. And finally, we'll look at the issue of FCRA suspension of certain NGOs in India. Let's get started. So the first article is from Indian Express. It says, 4 years after in Wayanad, elephant corridor secured rise in animals and incomes. Now this report was released by the Wildlife Trust of India, and it shows that 4 years after the Thirunelli Kundrakotte elephant corridor in Kerala's Wayanad district was accorded protection by the state, the number of man-elephant conflicts has come down and unencumbered elephant movement has increased. And it has also led to the increase in other species in the area, including tigers and spotted deer. Now at this point, we must understand what is an elephant corridor. Basically, elephant corridors are linear, narrow, natural habitat linkages that allows elephants to move between secure habitats without being disturbed by humans. Now, the Wayanad corridor was initiated by the Kerala government nearly 15 years ago with the WTI and with the help of international NGOs. And it's the first of its kind in South Asia. Here, the villagers were encouraged to move out of the elephant corridor voluntarily. Now, this entire Thirunelli Kundrakotte corridor is spread in 2200 acre area, and it is located at the tri-junction of Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. See, here is the Thirunelli Kundrakotte corridor, and this whole region is the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. Now, by evacuating people, 37 acre area was secured to ensure that this corridor remains unbroken. And this corridor links 6,500 elephants. And not only elephants, it also serves other species as well. Now, the 37 acres that was secured for the Thirunelli Kundrakotte corridor, it falls between the protected areas of Brahmagiri Wildlife Sanctuary and the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. Now, another important fact about the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary is that it is also home to 45 species of mammals, including tigers, sambhars, sloth bears, common leopards, gaur, spotted deer, grey langur, the bonnet macaque, and the Malabar giant squirrel. Now, over the years, UPSC has evolved a tendency of asking such factual questions, so please pay attention to all these names. The sanctuary also houses 227 bird species, which account for 48% of the total bird species in the state of Kerala. Now, let us also look at the status of man-elephant encounters in India. Annually, India sees about 450 deaths in encounters with elephants, with at least 5 lakh families affected due to the man-animal conflict. Now, elephants are estimated to damage 0.8 to 1 million hectares of crops every year. and at least 100 elephants are known to be killed annually in the conflict. Now, the elephant issue is also important because it was in news recently when a pregnant elephant was killed in Kerala. So, it is important to know about this issue. Now, South India has a total of 28 elephant landscapes and corridors. Important corridors being Brahmagiri Nilgiri Eastern Ghats, Nilambar Silent Valley and Coimbatore, Periyar Agasthamalai Landscape, Annamalai Perumbukulam area. So please take screenshot of this, okay? Now the next point arises that why should we care what happens to elephants? You see, elephants happen to be keystone species. Now, keystone species are those species that have a disproportionately large effect on the communities in which they occur. For example, the presence of elephant not only affects the elephant, but it also affects the presence of other mammals like tigers. Now, because of their nomadic behavior and their daily and seasonal migration, they move a lot. And that movement is immensely important to the environment. Let's see how. Number one, landscape architects. Now, when elephants move, they also change the landscape of the forest. Sometimes they prevent the overgrowth of certain plant species and they allow the space for regeneration of others. They create clearings in the forest, and this in turn provides sustenance to other herbivorous animals. Number two, they help in seed dispersal. Now, elephants eat plants, fruits, and seeds, and they release the seeds when they defecate in other places, and hence they help the seeds travel. This allows for the distribution of various plant species, and that benefits biodiversity as well. Number three, nutrition. Now, elephant dung is nutritious and it provides nutrients to plants and animals, and it also acts as a breeding ground for insects. Number four, their role in the food chain. Now, apex predators like tigers sometimes hunt young elephants. Further, the elephant dead bodies provide food for other animals. Next, water providers. In times of drought, they access water by digging holes, which not only benefits elephants but also other wildlife. And their large footprints also collect water when it rains. That benefits smaller creatures. And last, umbrella effect. Now, when we preserve a large area for elephants to roam around, we also provide a suitable habitat for many other animal and plant species of an ecosystem. So you can see the importance of elephants for the ecosystem. So now we can understand that to have elephants in isolated populations with restricted movement through their home ranges would have a devastating effect on India's natural heritage. Many animal species would suffer, and it would also upset the ecosystem balance of several wildlife habitats. It would also eventually lead to local extinction of India's national heritage animal, one of the wisest and most beloved species on the planet. Now, this next news is very interesting and inspiring. See, every problem brings opportunities. And this is the story about two IIT Bombay friends who saw the problem of slow 2G service and how that was hampering the online education of the students in the J&K Valley. So they came up with a solution called the WISE app. Let us know about the app. Now, this app is a 2G friendly video interface that allows teachers and students to cut through problems of scheduling. It makes teaching and assessments over the internet easier, and it was important as we know that 4G services have not been fully restored in the valley. Plus, due to the lockdowns, students were not able to reach their schools. So they had to manage with the slow 2G internet that was available. It also makes the experience as close to real classroom as possible. It is also extremely user-friendly, completely free of cost, and it comes without any advertisements. Now, there are also inbuilt privacy features of the app. It does not share the details of students with everyone. Only the authorized people can get the access to that information. And it has a unique feature in a way it allows the teachers to track attendance. Now, it is amazing that after a month of its launch, the app is being used by 3,000 teachers, a vast majority of whom are in J&K, and who are now able to reach thousands of students even over restricted network speeds. The developers of the app were also featured on the Government of India's 74 Years 74 Series campaign, which gave it a fillip and reach. In fact, our HRD minister also tweeted about the app and he praised the effort by these young chaps. So there's something we all should learn from them. Now, the next news is about the IT ministry, which has sought bids from companies to help recycle and refurbish end of life lithium ion batteries and the printed circuit boards. Now, this project will be executed by the Center for Materials for Electronics and Technology. Now, this is aimed at the extraction of precious metals such as cobalt, nickel, lithium, copper, aluminum, gold, and platinum, which are present in the discarded electronic items, also known as e-waste. Now, the aim of the project is to contain the import of raw materials used for manufacturing of lithium ion batteries and PCBs, especially what we call the rare earth minerals. We are heavily dependent on these rare earth minerals, and majority of these minerals come from China. In fact, China is the biggest exporter of rare earth minerals in the world. And the other aim is to contain the e-waste generated by electronics gadget using these components. Now, it is to note that at present, the government does not have any facility for processing, recycling, or refurbishing of end-of-life lithium-ion batteries or printed circuit boards. Now, talking about e-waste in India, according to the latest data by the Global E-Waste Monitor, which was released in July 2020, in 2019, India produced 2.6 kg of e-waste per capita. That means on an average per person, India produced 2.6 kg of electronic waste. And India has around 312 authorized e-waste recyclers. Now, the majority of e-waste recycling in India is done in the unauthorized sector. In a later video, we'll cover the entire issue of e-waste in India. And these 312 recyclers have a capacity of treating approximately 800 kilotons annually, which is far less than what India produces. Now, this next article is related to modern history. Mopla writers, not freedom fighters, report. Now, we'll get to know who were the Moplas, what is the controversy behind them being listed as martyrs, and what was Wagon tragedy. Now, the Indian Council of Historical Research, it formed a 3-member committee, and one of the members was Mr. Isaac, and he recommended that the leaders of the Malabar Rebellion be removed from the martyrs list. Now, this list is in a book called Dictionary of Martyrs. Now, first let us get to know who are Moplas. Now, Moplas were basically Muslim immigrants who arrived in Kerala around 7th century AD, and they came as traders, and they came much before the advent of Mughals in India. Now, they were given the permission to carry on trade and settle by native rulers. And the word Mopla means son-in-law in Malayalam, because they married local women and their descendants came to be known as Moplas. Now, before Tipu Sultan's attack on Malabar, the traditional land system, the owners were the Janmani or the landlord, and they used to let out land to others for farming. And the Moplas were basically cultivators, and the Janmanis were upper caste Hindus. So this thing had a communal angle. Now, many Hindu landlords, they fled Malabar after the invasion of Tipu Sultan. They fled Malabar because they were afraid that they would be subjected to persecution and maybe even forced conversions. Now, what happened when they left? The Mopla tenants got the ownership rights of the lands. Now, Tipu Sultan was finally defeated in 1799 in the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, where he was killed. And Malabar came under the British authority as part of the Madras Presidency. Now, the British set out to restore the ownership rights of Jainmis, or the upper caste Hindus. Now, in this new system, the Jainmis got absolute ownership right of the land. And that was not the case previously, because in traditional land holding system in India, there was always a kind of a understanding between the landlord and the tenant, that though tenant used to till the land and he could be evicted in principle, but the landlord never practiced that option. But now the landlord's control over the land became absolute. The peasants were facing high rents and a lack of security of tenure, because it was like the zamindar system. The Jainmis themselves had to pay the British a fixed amount at a certain date. If they did not pay, they would be evicted. So they passed on the burden to the peasants, who were the Moplas. Now, things got heated and it caused a series of riots by the Moplas starting from 1836. And between 1836 and 1896, they killed many government officers and Hindu landlords. Now, what was the Mopla rebellion? So we can see already there's a communal tension here. Now, the Khilafat movement started in India in 1919, and it was in reaction to the British decision to dismantle the Ottoman Empire after the First World War. So in India, they started an agitation called the Khilafat movement, which basically protested against the British decision. Now, you see the paradox that Khilafat movement on an all India level was an example of communal harmony, because in this movement Hindus and Muslims came together. But if you look at Kerala, this Khilafat movement led to Mopla rebellion, which was a case of communal violence. Now, this movement was supported by Indian National Congress under Gandhiji. Now, as part of the Khilafat movement, many meetings were held throughout the country, and they came to be known as Khilafat meetings. Now, when those meetings were held in Malabar, they incited communal feelings, and the pent-up anger among the Moplas towards the Hindu landlords and the British came out in form of large-scale violence, and it saw systematic persecution of Hindus and British officials. Many homes and temples were destroyed. From August 1921 till about the end of year, the rebels had under their control large parts of Malabar. But that rebellion was crushed by the British by the end of the year. The British had raised a special battalion for this purpose, called the Malabar Special Force. Now, the prominent leaders of the rebellion were Ali Musaliar and Viriyan Kunnat Kunja Ahmed Haji. These were the two prominent leaders of the rebellion. Now, what is the wagon tragedy? It occurred in November 1921 when 67 Mopla prisoners were being transferred in a closed freight wagon from Tirur to the central prison in Podanur, and they died of suffocation. So this event came to be known as wagon tragedy. Now let us get back to the report and what it says. Now the report basically recommends the removal of names of 387 Mopla writers, including the leaders Ali Musliar and Variam Kunnat Ahmed Haji, and Haji's two brothers, from the book on martyrs of India's freedom struggle. This book is called, as I've already told you, Dictionary of Martyrs, India's Freedom Struggle, 1857 to 47. And it was released by the PM last week. The 2016 report of the Council recommended the deletion of names when the fifth volume came up for review, and that volume covered the martyrs of freedom struggle from South India. And not only the Muslim writers, the committee also recommended removal of around 10 Hindu names who had also participated in the riots. Now the review report said that almost all Mopla outrages were communal. They were against Hindu society and done out of sheer intolerance. Thus, those names should be deleted from yet to be published book. Now, this next article is about Assam Rifles and it pertains to a turf war between the Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, Assam Rifles is a central paramilitary force, and the main issue is that it is under dual control. While the Home Ministry has the administrative control, the Defense Ministry has the operational control. That means all the issues relating to salaries, pensions, transfers, etc. are handled by Home Ministry, but the ground operations and their deployment is handled by the Ministry of Defense. Now this has created problems because the members of the Assam Rifles, they feel disadvantaged because their workload is as good as the army, but their pay scale is in fact very less than what the officers and the members of the Indian Army get. And as such, some of the members of the Assam Rifles call themselves as cheap army. Now, this petition was filed by the Assam Rifles Ex-Servicemen Welfare Association in the Delhi High Court, asking for transferring the control of Assam Rifles to one ministry only and preferably under the Ministry of Defense, that is the Indian Army. Now, the petition argued that the administrative controls under Ministry of Home Affairs and the operational control under the Ministry of Defense has created problems. They argue that the objectives and functions of Assam Rifle is that of a military and paramilitary force, but since it comes under the administrative control of Ministry of Home Affairs, it is categorized as a police force, and they say that this is arbitrary, unreasonable and violation of the rights of the Assam Rifles personnel. And the greatest inequity that they suffer from is that their morale is affected because they operate alongside the army on similar duties, but there is a disparity in pay scale of the two. And due to that, somehow the Assam Rifles personnel call themselves a cheap army. This is what the police said. Now let us get some idea about Assam Rifles. It is the oldest paramilitary force of India and it was raised back in the year 1835 by the British India. It is one of the 6 Central Armed Police Forces or the CAPFs under the administrative control of Ministry of Home Affairs. The other forces being the CRPF, BSF, ITBP, CISF and the SSB. Now, looking at its functions, it has multiple functions like maintenance of law and order in the northeast along with the Indian Army, and it also guards the Indo-Myanmar border in the region. Now, the Assam Rifles was raised as a militia to protect British tea estates and the settlements from the raids of northeast tribes. And the force was first known as the Kachar Levy, and it was later reorganized as Assam Frontier Force, and its role was expanded to conduct punitive operations beyond the borders of Assam. And since its inception, the Assam Rifles has been involved in 2 world wars, the Sino-Indian War of 1962, and it has been used extensively as anti-insurgency force against militant groups in the northeast. It has also operated in the foreign land as part of Indian peacekeeping forces to Sri Lanka in 1987, and that operation was called Operation Pawan. And it has also kept the role of peacekeeping force in the northeastern areas of India. And it remains one of the most awarded paramilitary force in both pre and post-independent India. Now talking about its strength, it has a sanctioned strength of 63,000 and has 46 battalions apart from administrative and training staff. So it is a huge organization. And unfortunately or fortunately again, it is the only paramilitary force with dual control structure. And this is the only paramilitary force in our country which in the real sense is a paramilitary force because its operational duties and regimentation are on the lines of the Indian Army. Now a question arises that why do both Ministry of Home Affairs and Ministry of Defense want full control over the Assam Rifles. Let us look at their stance. Now, the Ministry of Home Affairs say that the border guarding force are under the operational control of ministry. So Assam Rifle, coming under the MHA, will make border guarding a comprehensive and integrated approach. The MHA also says that Assam Rifles continues to function on the pattern set in 1960s, and it wants to make guarding of Indo-Myanmar border on the lines of other CAPF. And what is the army stand? The army says that the system works quite well, so there is no need to change the status quo. Army is of the opinion that the Assam Rifles has been working well in coordination with the army, and the work of the rifles also frees the armed forces from many of its responsibilities to focus on its core strengths. The army also says that Assam Rifles was always a military force and not a police force, and has been built like a military force. The army further states that giving the control of the force to Ministry of Home Affairs and merging the force with other central armed police forces will confuse the force, and it could also jeopardize national security. Now, the High Court has given 10 days to both Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Home Affairs to come up with a final solution. Let's see what happens. Now, the next article is about FCRA. Now, we'll get to know what is FCRA, what is the whole issue about, because India has been banning NGOs for the past 2-3 years. And there's a very strong reason, because these NGOs get funding from abroad, and sometimes they work in a manner which is detrimental to our nation. For example, the NGO headed by Zakir Naik. Now, as of now, a total of 22,457 NGOs or associations that are registered under the FCRA. Of that, around 20,000 licenses have been cancelled, and about 6,700 licenses are deemed to have expired. Now, many big and prominent names have also come under the radar. Now, first let us understand what is FCRA. It is called the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 1976. It is a law which regulates the receipt of foreign contributions or aid from outside India to Indian territories. So whichever Indian organization like an NGO, if it is receiving funding from abroad, it has to be FCRA compliant. Now, this is to essentially ensure that the aid does not affect the political or any other situation in India. For example, there could be some NGO which is involved in the function of radicalizing the youth, and they are getting money from abroad. So it is very important to know which NGO is getting money from where and how that money is being used. Now, if it is a genuine donation, the FCRA is a very simple rule. In fact, it only is limited to filing of annual return every year, and that annual return is also not very complicated, but only for the genuine donation. The problem arises when the donations are dicey, and that is when they have a problem in filing the returns. Now, this law is enforced by Ministry of Home Affairs. And for any non-profit organization in India, it is mandatory to have a FCRA license to receive foreign funds. Now, in the past, concerns have been raised regarding the impact of US-based evangelical donors in regard to the Indian associations and their activities. Now, the reasons for suspension or violation were not specified by the ministry in its order. Now, the next news, close old power plants, save 53,000 crore. It is based on the analysis by Climate Research Horizon. Now, in itself, the organization is not that important for you to know, but what it says is interesting. It says that if we were to shut down thermal power plants, which are older than 20 years, in 11 key states where it actually conducted its studies, then the state exchequer could save 53,000 crore over a period of 5 years. And those savings will come on the account that India will not have to spend on retrofitting these plants in order to reduce their toxicity of emissions, or to switch to renewable energy. And even in her budget speech, a finance minister had announced that the state utilities would be urged to shut down old and polluting power plants to meet air emission norms. We'll also be discussing air emission norms and Paris Treaty, etc. in a later video. Now, the next news, Germany threatens Russia with sanctions. Well, if you live in Russia, you really can't mess with President Putin. So, this is a story about an opposition figure called Alexei Navalny. Now, this person was allegedly poisoned by the Russian establishment as he was boarding a flight. Now, next is a hopeful news about the vaccine for COVID-19. So, Russia has unveiled a COVID-19 vaccine called Sputnik 5, and it released it after phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials, which were conducted on only 76 people. Now, recently, a renowned medical journal called The Lancet published the results of phase 1 and phase 2 trials, and it said that the vaccine produced strong antibody response in the immune system. Now, Russia wants to scale up the production, so it is looking for conducting phase 3 trials, and for that it is sharing data with Indian authorities. So, Russian Research Institute has submitted the comprehensive data on vaccine safety and efficacy to the Indian authorities. Now, according to the results published in The Lancet, the vaccine candidate triggered a strong immune response that I've already told you about in phase 1 and phase 2 of the clinical trials on 76 people. This vaccine was developed by Moscow-based Gamaleya Research Institute of Epidemiology and Microbiology. Now, this comprehensive data is being evaluated by the experts in India, and there is a possibility that a separate phase 3 clinical trial will be conducted in India after necessary approvals from the regulators in India. Now, according to the official Sputnik 5 website, they're trying to conduct phase 3 trials in countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Brazil, and Philippines. So let us see what the results of phase 3 will be. Hopefully they will be good and we'll soon have a vaccine so that we get back to our normal lives. And please follow us on our Instagram channel, UPSC for Everyone. Now, the next news is about DGCA. It moves formula on refunds for cancelled flights. So what happened was that many people had already booked their flight tickets, but because of the lockdown, their flights got cancelled. Now, the airlines did not refund their flight tickets. Some of the airlines tried to give them some credits, but those credits were time bound. So as a result, many passengers filed a petition in the Supreme Court demanding for refunds. Now, the DGCA is also a party to that case. So what it said, let us look at it. Now, DGCA said that the air passengers, they have a legitimate right to get full refund of their tickets because the flights were not cancelled because of their own fault, but because of the national lockdown. But DGCA also said that at this point, many airlines are already cash strapped. So asking them to pay the passengers would be detrimental for the Indian aviation industry as a whole. So DGCA has given a set of proposals to the Supreme Court. These proposals were worked out by the Ministry of Civil Aviation. And these proposals are trying to balance the interests of the passengers and the viability of airline sector, because airlines in India are already reeling under financial distress because of the lockdowns. Now, what does the proposal say? It says that passengers who book their tickets during the lockdown will get an immediate and full refund from the airlines. For all other cases, the airline shall make all endeavors to refund the collected amount to the passengers within 15 days. So whosoever had their flights cancelled because of the lockdown, they will get their payment immediately. For other cases, it has said that within 15 days, the airline has to refund. Now, what are the other cases? They would include passengers who had booked their tickets before the lockdown was suddenly imposed from March 25 and extended till May 3rd. Now, the proposal has also devised an alternative credit shell scheme for airlines that are too poor to pay a refund. As per this scheme, the credit shell will be opened in the name of the passenger who booked the ticket. and this shall be valid up to 31st March 2021. So what will happen that, as if you get credits for making payments on some platform, similarly you'll get credit in your account that will be opened by the airline, and you can use that credit to book any flight till 31st March. And if the passenger chooses not to use the credit shell, then the airline will have to refund the ticket money by the end of March 2021. So you'll have to specify that I don't want to use my credit shell. Please repay, and the airline shall repay you. And this credit shell is also transferable to any person. So you can also transfer this credit shell to any person and you can get the payment from that person. And as an incentive mechanism, the proposal offered a 0.5 increase in the valuation of the credit shell if it was not consumed until June 30, 2020. So if you lock in your credit shell till June 30, 2020, you'll see a 0.5% increment. So probably you can book a ticket of higher class or a different destination that would charge a higher rate. Now the next news, Germany threatens Russia with sanctions. Well, if you live in Russia, you really can't mess with President Putin. So this is a story about an opposition figure called Alexei Navalny. Now this person was allegedly poisoned by the Russian establishment as he was boarding a flight. And this has led to tensions between Russia and Germany. Now, Germany said last week that there were unequivocal evidences that Mr. Putin's top four had been poisoned with a Soviet-era nerve agent called Novichok. And it is not a new thing in Russia. Many anti-government figures and many anti-Putin figures have been subjected to poisoning. So it is not a new thing in Russia. On the other hand, Russia is accusing Berlin that it is not conducting or delaying the investigation that Russia had demanded. Now, Mr. Navalny, a prominent opposition leader and an anti-corruption campaigner, he fell ill on a flight last month and was treated in Siberian hospital before he was evacuated to Berlin. Now, this sanctions could target the Nord Stream 2, which is going to be a multi-billion euro Russian-German gas pipeline nearing completion that has drawn the ire of US and European partners alike. Now, because America and European Union were not happy that Germany is cutting deals with Russia at the time that they were trying to sanction Russia for various reasons, including the annexation of Crimea. So let's see what happens. But in Russia, never mess with Mr. Putin. So this is all for this video, folks. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, and please connect with us on our Instagram channel, UPSC for Everyone. You can also give us suggestions and we'll try to improve our videos in the coming days, and we'll try to upload as many videos as possible. If you think any topic is important, please put a suggestion in the comment box and we'll surely try to make a video on that topic as well. So meet you next time. Till then, stay safe, stay happy, and have a great time. Namaste.